Appleton, Wisconsin. Downtown lays a plaza building that began life as a mall. However, poor timing ultimately killed this mall as it competed with the Fox River Mall. While the mall itself is over, it did manage to live on as a business center. Let's go have a look around, shall we? You know how every once in a while I stumble upon a mall that has not only a lot of history but a very interesting story? This is one of those malls. We have a lot to go over, and I tried to cut it down, so bear with me. The original site of the City Center Plaza goes back quite a ways, with the building originally belonging to a department store called Pettibone-Peabody, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. In 1946, this store would end up becoming Prangie's fourth department store. Meanwhile, Gimbel's would establish itself in 1971 at the corner of College Avenue and Morrison Street. The mall itself would come into the picture by the 1950s. Well, only conceptually, with Victor Grunt proposing an open-air pedestrian mall by 1954. Unfortunately, this never came to be as the proposal was rejected. I am low-key disappointed, as pedestrian malls can still be quite interesting if done right. Multiple attempts were made to propose a ped mall or other type of downtown shopping that would close off multiple streets, but these were never taken up. Until the 80s, when the threat of the Fox River Mall scared much of Appleton's downtown retail. Plans were then quickly and hastily drafted up for a new shopping mall, and the National Redevelopment Company would prepare for construction and completion. This plan was never meant to be, however, at least not under the NRC, whom was exposed for financial problems and legal issues. In 1980, they would be dropped, and a new partner was sought out. However, another study emerged that a downtown shopping mall would oversaturate Appleton's retail environment and ultimately be detrimental to both malls in the long run. And the Appleton Redevelopment Authority, or ARA, proposed that the downtown mall should be dropped, or at the very least scaled back. Eventually, an architect by the name of Jeremy Mayberg was called upon for the site, who drafted plans for a 3-square concept that would eliminate a portion of Oneida Street and connect the Prangie's and Gimbel's stores with an enclosed mall corridor. The 3 squares would come into play as 2 open-air plazas, while augmenting the nearby Soldiers Square as the 3rd plaza. Unfortunately, the 3-square plan never came to be despite praise from the ARA and a unanimous endorsement by the City Council. But the shopping mall went ahead and would be known as the Avenue Mall. The project was announced in February 1984, and 17 buildings between Gimbel's and Prangie's would be demolished to make way for the mall. Not everything was destroyed, however, as the historic Atkins building was preserved, along with the Conway home for the elderly. During construction, Gimbel's would close its door for the last time in 1986, and the city of Appleton had to act fast so they didn't open with a vacant anchor. The parent company that owned Gimbel's, BATUS, or BATUS, was planning on converting a number of Gimbel stores into Marshall Fields. Local leaders of Appleton were able to negotiate the conversion of their Gimbel store into a Marshall Fields, just in time for the mall's official opening in March 1987. Now, depending on your disposition, this is where things get either hilarious or tragic, or maybe a little of both. The Avenue Mall opened with only 16 of its 65 inline tenants occupied, with only 4 following in the months. Prangies and Marshall Fields would be signed into a contract that allowed them to leave if the mall dropped below 70% occupancy, provided they gave 6 months' notice. However, the mall never made it past 43% in its initial years, and the lenders for the mall, Lions Savings, based out of Illinois, went bankrupt in 1988. As bad as I feel for a failed mall like this would be a slow burn poster child for Failblog. And considering that website is just political speculation now, I guess Failblog failed too. Epic fail. Prangies gave their notice and would close in November 1989, and Marshall Fields would close in May 1991 after being acquired by yet another company. And by summer 1991, the Avenue Mall was only 18% occupied. The city knew this was a bad look, and they had to do something. And as you can see, they did do something. But it's still a long, complicated story. I'll try to beat it down. As the owner of the Avenue Mall defaulted on their loan in 1991, the mall would be put up for auction. The city dragged their feet on establishing City Hall in the mall, but eventually agreed to set up in the upper floors of the Prangies building, while the Fox City's Children's Museum set up in the second floor of the building in November 1992. This would also lead to the Prangies building being renamed into the Appleton City Center. Out of left field, Herberger's established their department store in the former Marshall Fields in July 1993. This, coupled with City Hall and the Children's Museum, among other offices, ended up temporarily revitalizing the mall and bringing in new retail tenants. And by fall of 1994, the mall was said to have 94% occupancy. What a change in events. This was so substantial that the mall hosted a grand reopening ceremony. Even when Herberger's was acquired by Profits in 1996, the store would only be rebranded into a Younkers and would remain open until 2002, despite the store already having a presence at Fox River Mall. After Younkers' closure in 2002, the mall would get renamed into the City Center Plaza, and the former Younkers would get converted into office space, the building being renamed into City Center East. And that is ultimately where the story ends. The mall still stands today, as you can see, but it serves primarily as a mixed-use business center, and an enclosed corridor to get out of the elements. But what a story for a downtown mall, don't you think? Retail itself is, for the most part, over at this mall, but you can still see a few small businesses and eateries that call this former mall home. Currently, there is a redevelopment plan in the works to transition this mall further into offices and alternative businesses, but as far as I can tell, it looks like the interior will remain to some degree. Now, I would love to go into my personal thoughts on this funky little space, but it's already almost time to go. So instead, I'd like to turn the discussion over to you in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the City Center Plaza? Do you remember the Avenue Mall? Do tell me what it was like. I am curious. Thanks for having me, Appleton, Wisconsin. And until next time, this is Doomie Grunt wishing you and the City Center Plaza farewell and good luck in the future. Okay, for those wondering why the Avenue was so poorly timed, let me remind you that Fox River Mall was better positioned and it opened the exact same year.